Hello, Shistrin. So we are behind on our episodes. Let me explain, okay? I am currently switching gears when it comes to the content of the show. I'm looking to create something new ways of approaching a similar idea that I see the podcast becoming. You know how it is when you keep psyching yourself out of your own greatness. Like, that's kind of where we're at, but we're back to reality and everything is looking on track. For today, let's just get into the topic because we have so much to share. We're going to try to keep this in about an hour's range. From the last time we chatted, we are in the middle of a conversation. And the conversation is about relationship satisfaction. And it began with the sensational Dr. Dominique Barnes-Walker, who is a licensed therapist. She came on the show, she shared her research with us, and she brought up a key finding of her study that really stood out to me.
One of the things that I found from my study is that as age and income increase, relationship satisfaction decreased. And those who were identified as being in domestic partnerships or committed relationships, they were less satisfied in their relationship than those who were married. The sample that I had was very educated and financially privileged, I would say. Half the women in the sample had indicated that they had a postgraduate degree. Well, half the women, 50.8%, had a master's degree or a doctoral degree. And 46% of the participants reported their income being between 50 and 100K and 12% over 100K.
This finding just blew my mind because I had so many questions that came to mind. Like, one, we know that this study focused on Black women. Two, these are majority academically educated women. What is going on here? Why is it that as income increased, relationship satisfaction decreased? There are a lot of things that we could probe, or a researcher whose specialty this is could probe. My overall curiosity led me to wondering, why are people remaining in relationships when they are not satisfied? And kind of understanding the logic behind desire and romance and relationships. Specifically, it was interesting seeing that those who are unmarried are reporting lower levels of satisfaction. So I did some digging and I found this amazing researcher by the name, I believe it's pronounced Stephanie Spielmann, who literally wrote the thesis on settling for less out of fear of being single. That's actually her Ph.D. thesis title. In her thesis, she studied people's thoughts about being single, developed and validated the fear of being single scale, continued on to determine whether her hypothesis that fear of being single resulted in settling for less in romantic relationships, and a few other really cool things. One thing I did not see her report in her research was ethnic or geographical demographics of her participants. So she pretty much identified her participants as either being men or women. And we also don't know if they are cis or transgender individual. I bring this up because we do understand collectively that there are cultures within different demographics that matter, and I'm assuming would experience things a bit different, just depending on social pressures from within cultures. That's just something that I noticed. Her research suggests that those who fear being single may lower their relationship standards without realizing it and may be willing to settle for less when maintaining their relationships. They do not consciously acknowledge a willingness to settle for less. However, the studies show that they were more romantically interested in less responsive and less physically attractive targets. This matters because partner responsiveness is arguably one of the most fundamental components of satisfying committed relationships and is a pivotal marker of high quality lasting relationships. Her work suggested that those who fear being single may be engaging in a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy such that they unselectively initiate relationships with less responsive partners who subsequently treat them poorly or dissolve the relationship, further amplifying their concerns about being unable to maintain a relationship and risk being single in the long term. Something that is interesting to me, which I am not sure whether she pointed out to me, is the fact that the number one reason for fear being alone is the fear of not having a long-term companion of an intimate partner, which is an answer that is very self-focused, right? The second reason for fear of being single is the fear of losing one's current partner. So I don't know. It's just curious how we seek companionship for self rather than by chance of finding a person who may be fitting as a companion. Our guests today do bring up their opinions about why we seek companionship. And I also feel that it is worth mentioning that her work does not associate the fear of being single with physical attractiveness. What does that have to do with anything? I just told you about this research. What's going on? Well, maybe nothing, okay? But what I do want to do here is have a conversation talking about singleness, what it looks like to be in it, and proudly. I want to talk about the fears of those who are riding solo and lessons that we learn along the way. As stated by Spielmann, the Western society maintains an ideology that the romantic relationship is the most important social relationship. But, I mean, is it? We don't know. On my Instagram, I did a call out for single women who had stayed in relationships beyond its time. I was really just seeking to start this conversation on this platform, and bravely, our great sister, Jasmine James, decided that she would lend us her heart and her time and her voice. She is an educator, mother, and Ph.D. student, and I wanted her perspective on what keeps us in relationships, although we know they are no longer fulfilling.
I was pregnant when I was 25. I got married when I was 25. So I was pretty much a youngin'. And I think for me, it was just more so trying to do the right thing. When we think about being women, we're told you got to do things in order. You want to have the ring before the baby, before that. And so I think I kind of got all consumed into that mindset of like, okay, I'm pregnant and I need to be married. And I need to do this and I need to do that. And I think had I stepped back and been like, let me really assess the readiness of us for a marriage. Let me assess whether I even am getting what I deserve here. And I'm not just doing it for the kid or doing it for other people to be like, oh, she did it the right way. I don't think that we were ready to be in a marriage. I don't even think we were ready to be in a relationship. I don't think we were equally yoked at all, completely on two different pages. And I also just think I continue to not trust my own intuition. There were just like a lot of situations, even when we were dating, I was like, this is not right. This is not right. Then I ended up pregnant. I'm like, this still was not right, but I'm still holding on. I'm trying to hold us both up. I'm trying to consistently find resources for us to grow and develop as a marriage. And I just don't think that we were at an equal level when it came to what it took to be in a relationship, what it took to be in a marriage. And not just on his part. I just feel like I also was just fumbling through life trying to figure out how to be a wife and a mom and a teacher and all this other stuff. So I just don't think that either one of us were prepared. And I just think that there were more choices on his end that I was like, okay, this is giving me my way out. I just can't do this anymore.
How much do you think external pressures had on your decision making in your relationship?
A lot. I come from a faith-based community. I'm a Christian. So I feel like when I ended up pregnant before I was married, I was just devastated because I think we kind of get in our mind the life we want to have, and everybody always wants to get married first and then like plan for children. And I'm just always a very methodical person. Everything I do has a plan. It's a method to my madness. And so when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, well, wait a minute. I am 24 years old. I have no idea how to be nobody's mama. I literally am just trying to figure out how to be a worker. And on top of that, when you're in a faith community, people have opinions. People have stuff to say. For me, I just felt ashamed. Like, dang, I've been walking on the right path my whole life. And then, bam, I'm pregnant at 24. And now I got to tell all these people I love that I'm about to have a baby. And these are the decisions that I'm choosing to make. And everybody was definitely supportive. Oh, we love you. Do what's best for you. Take it slow. But I also felt like I had seen situations where young women that I knew had ended up pregnant and was definitely getting a spank at. Luckily, my close, immediate family is not like that. My mom was like, we're here to support you. My sisters are like, it is what it is. My younger sister had a daughter really young, and we supported her through that. It was never like, go marry this and move into a house and figure it out. We kind of let them make their own decisions. But I feel like me being me and always trying to put my best foot forward, I used to really live in that space of perfectionism. Nothing can be out of order. Chaos makes me feel like I don't know what's going on. I wasn't able to roll with the punches until I became a mom. This is not the life that I planned for myself. I never wanted to be a mom first, then a wife, especially with somebody that I was dating for a year. I feel like those outside pressures pushed us into the marriage. I think had we really stepped back and just been parents, we probably would have been like, oh, okay, it's just best for us to be co-parents at this time. We don't need to be forcing a marriage. But we went into that union. We had support for it, of course, but I just don't think that it was the right thing to do at the time.
How do you look at love now? Is this something that you're interested in pursuing, or are you giving yourself healing time?
The whole process of exiting out this marriage started when I was in the marriage. I feel like I had been grieving the loss of my marriage while I was still married. I just knew in my heart, I'm like, this is not going to last. So let me prepare myself. I had found a counselor and was just really sticking with her throughout the whole process. As I was exiting out of the marriage, I was also being counseled and supported through that. My healing was like simultaneous. My heart was broken, but I could go to a counseling session and really talk that out and process that. And that started probably January of this year. So it's been about a full year. I have like my exit session with my counselor this upcoming January so we can talk about strategies moving forward. We've had very consistent sessions. Healing was definitely necessary because I was just so in shambles at the beginning of this. I had a newborn baby. He was about 5 months. I knew that I was getting ready to process out of this marriage. I didn't know how I was going to be a single mom. I had to shift bills and stuff. I was just torn up, toe up from the floor up. Couldn't get out the bed. It was just a lot of craziness going on. I don't think I would be where I am now had I not healed through this. I don't think I'm ready to jump into a new relationship anytime soon. I'm casually dating, which is definitely a little bit ghetto. Just no type of consistency. I just feel like with me and my son, nobody meets my child. If you can't even give me the vibe, it's weird. Men who try to date moms really don't know what's going on. Like, they don't know what to do. It's like, you're dating me, you're not dating my child yet. If we get to the point where we're serious, then you'll meet my son. But when I tell you, I want to come to your house and watch movies, like, I know we're in a pandemic, but you're not coming in my home. This is where my child lives. I want the same dating experience as single women without children. I want to be taken out. I want you to put in that effort. I want flowers. I want you to open the door, pull out the chair. People assume because you're a mom, well, she gonna take what she can get. I'm not. I absolutely am not settling anymore moving forward.
You think that's only because you a single mom? Oh,
I think that's just in general. And I think it's especially with Black women. One of my friends is dating a white woman. Mm-hmm. And when I tell you, he's pulling out the stops. But I've known Black women that he's dated and he was raggedy, just very much toxic, immature, giving him his literal last straw. But now he's with this white woman who's in the same field as he is, and he's going all out.
Do you feel like you stayed in your last relationship longer than you needed to?
Yes, I think even when we were dating, there were just a lot of red signs. And there were probably red signs on my end, him looking at me as well. But I think sometimes we just get caught up in wanting to be with somebody or the feelings of romance that we don't ever really step back and say, okay, this is actually not healthy. These things are not actually what we're supposed to be doing. This is not what healthy communication looks like. And so when we were dating, our relationship took a break. Come to find out, it was a lot of inappropriate things being done at that time on his part that I wasn't aware of. And so then when we got back together, he was carrying all that baggage from what he had been doing when we were on a break, which I was not aware of. And I think that festered in our relationship. So majority of our relationship leading up to our marriage and majority of the beginning of our marriage was just an uncovering of a lot of stuff that had been happening. I think people assume, they feel like, okay, I'm with somebody. This person is supposed to carry all of me. Absolutely, positively not. It's okay. You're dating somebody or you're married to somebody and they fall on a hard time. They lose their job. Okay, that's something y'all can work through. You motivate them to go look for a new job. You support them through that. But when I'm talking about carrying trauma bonds and all types of foolishness, you should not force anybody that you're in a relationship to do that. And I think that's where we kind of got it twisted. Yes, I'm married to you, but you have to take the initiative to go and figure out all of the things that you had been carrying prior to us being together. The stuff that he was carrying had dated way back to before I even knew this man. And it's like, you never really dealt with that. And then we got married and it's like, now you're my wife. This is what I'm coming with. Either you're going to take it or leave it. And it got to the point where I'm going to leave it. I think that I had tried, I'm talking about month after month after month. And it got to the point where I wasn't sleeping. I was losing all this weight. My hair was falling out. It was just a lot of crazy stuff. My son was just very agitated all the time as an infant, always fussy, crying, pulling his own hair. The energy in our house was just exhaustion. It got to the point where I physically cannot get out of the bed. I'm consistently late to work. I'm at work crying in a copy room, trying to get my stuff together, pull myself together before I go pick up my kids, having somebody bring my students up to my classroom because I just cannot get it together, dropping a fussy baby off at daycare. That it just got to the point where I'm like, if we continue to do this, I'm not going to be able to sustain myself physically or I'm going to have a mental break. If we're talking about for the sake of our child, no child should have to have this. This should not be our son's childhood. We have to really sit back and assess what's best for him. And what's best for him is two healthy parents who co-parent versus two unhealthy parents in one household trying to force a marriage to work. I definitely stayed a lot longer than I should have because there were major red signs even when we first got married. But I'm like, we're married. Marriages are supposed to last. We said to death do us part, but I don't think that people understand there are a lot of requirements before to death do us part that have to be met before you really enter into that union with somebody. And I don't think that we really thought about doing any of that background work. We did premarital counseling, of course, and a lot of stuff was uncovered then, but I don't think that there was a lot of honesty there. So when questions were being asked, it was like, oh, this person knows everything about me. I actually don't. And we got married and now it's all coming out. Where was that energy prior? Because we could have saved so much time and energy and effort just not even doing this. You could have given me the option to really say, okay, this is everything that's on the table. Is this something that I can deal with? Is this the person I want to be with? And I just don't think that that opportunity was given.
You mentioned a few times this idea of being a good wife. What does a good wife look like to you?
In the past, a good wife to me was definitely somebody who was like, I'm about to hold it down. I got a baby on my hip, spoon in a pot, really just overexerting your energy to try to do everything you could. That's what I saw as a wife because I feel like when I would talk to other older couples, they would be like, we went through this and this and this and this and this, and here we are 50 years later. And I'm like, yo, wait a minute. I think that was the counsel that I was given. The only relationships I have seen that have been super successful is people who have left a toxic marriage and got into another really healthy one. But usually they're a lot older. They got a divorce when they were like 49. And now they're 50, married with their new spouse, traveling all across the world. And I just was like, do I really want to wait until I'm 50 to do this? Of course, I didn't want to be seen as a quitter. Oh, she didn't even make it to her 1 year anniversary. She got a divorce 1 month after her 1 year anniversary. anniversary. Now I feel like the conditions of a good wife is to have a good husband. The man who always is falling on the woman. What are you doing? Are you still dressing up and doing your makeup for your man? Did you let yourself go after the kids? And it's like, where is the responsibility of the man in this relationship? What is he bringing as a husband? I need to be yoked to a man who wants to be a husband, who understands how to be a husband. Then the qualities of a good wife are always going to come out.
Do you feel optimism about finding love in the near future?
I feel a little bit both. I think I'm more pessimistic because this is the first time in my life where I have standards.
That's a word. Do you think it's because of your son?
I think it's because I don't want my son to mirror what I've seen in other men that are my age or relationships that my friends are in. I'm like, yo, they were raised by a woman at one point in their life. And for them to think that this is okay and acceptable, something had to be seen that made them think that that was okay. I think the priority definitely is I want my son to be so compassionate and open and understanding and honest in his own right as a child. So as he grows up as a grown man, he has a lot of the qualities that I know a woman would be looking for in him. And then also, I just know that in order for me to be a good mom to my son, I have to be good to myself. And I don't think I really understood that until one day I was sitting in the house. I had been doing everything and I was just so frustrated. And I wasn't yelling at my son or anything, but I feel like he could tell I was frustrated. And he just was crying all day. And I'm like, baby, what is wrong? But I know that I was on 100 in a car, just crying, trying to get everything together. And I realized that my son is in this space with me. He's consistently with me. Even if he doesn't understand, it's still a type of energy and a type of presence that I want him to be in when he wakes up in the morning. And I just am not cultivating that for him. So I think I'm more pessimistic because I don't know what it looks like to be in a relationship and have those standards. I don't know if there is somebody who is going to accept the things that I'm asking for, because I just see so many people getting engaged and falling in love. And when they talk about their relationships, they tell the truth. Everything is not perfect, but at the same time, he's met all the things that I've asked him to meet. Or he's loved me through this season and cared for me through this season. And they have children, they're moms, and they blend their families, or they're meeting men who don't have children who still accept them in their child. It's a lot of optimism in that, right? But it's still like, where you at? Do you exist? Do you live in the city I live in? Or do I need to go ahead and take a drive, okay?
When your relationship was going through its challenges, did you feel like it was something wrong with you?
I did. I was like, dang, am I wrong for voicing my needs? Do I just need to be more quiet? My personality is very big. It's just all over the place. I want to do fun things. I want to plan this. I want to plan. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to have experiences. I speak my mind. There are certain ways I want to suggest for us to start thinking about ways to raise our son, being a little bit more conscious when it comes to discipline and the food that he eats and things. And I just was like, dang, should I just go with the old way? I think when you begin to build a family for yourself, you finally are like, wow, I get to figure out what I want that to look like for us. I get to make suggestions about healthy eating, not drinking milk when he's of age, giving him other options, finding other activities for him to do. I want us to have a different relationship where we can be honest and truthful 100% with one another, where we can cultivate a different type of space for us than what we've seen in the past based on the couples around us. And it was just always a wall. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? It would be days where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be more quiet. And then that didn't work. So it would be days where I'm like, let me voice my opinions. And that wouldn't work. It would be days where I'm just like, I'm going to give you your space, and that wouldn't work. Then it was like, you gave me space and now I need you to be closer to me. I just was like, what is it? Maybe I'm just not for you. Maybe it is something flawed about me that I just am not able to see it. But I knew that it wasn't me because I'm in counseling and I'm consistently being asked to self-reflect.
If you spent the rest of your life single, how would you feel about that?
I think I actually would not feel that down. I was just talking to somebody the other day and they were like, well, what if you don't find a partner? I'm like, well, I have a son. So he's with me until he's 18. But I also feel like that would give us a lot more freedom for me to just focus in on myself, focusing on giving him the life that I want him to have. I was telling my mom, I will literally move to Utah and buy a house where he can have a huge backyard. And when it snows, he can look out and see the snow and we see animals. And I don't have a problem with being by myself. And I think it took a really long time for me to realize, is being in a relationship worth losing yourself versus just being by yourself? You can have friends. Just because you're single doesn't mean that you can't have male companionship. You can still go on dates and get dressed up and have fun. And you don't have to be somebody's girlfriend or somebody's wife or somebody's fiance. You can still have that male companionship. But if you don't want to be in a serious committed relationship, why do it just for the sake of doing it?
Do you still feel pain over your divorce?
Yeah, I just bust out crying last week because I'm packing and I found all of our wedding cards and I just was torn up. I called my mom and I'm like, this is too much. This is the place that we purchased when we first found out we were having a baby. We had a newborn. We had just moved in. This is our first home together. And now I'm moving into a different space with my son and now the student that I'm going to be adopting. And so January is going to be a whole new start. And so I was cleaning up. I was finding old pictures of us, our wedding book that we had, and I just was so up.
Do you ever consider going back to your relationship?
I don't know. I think we crack jokes about, dang, if we knew this was going to be hard, baby, we could have stayed together. If we knew that this is what bills look like when you're by yourself, oh, we could have stayed together. You could have had one for the house. I could have had another for the house. I think as we co-parent and we have conversations about the past, I still don't think there's any accountability there. Oh, and this is what you did. And I'm like, okay, well, that's still how you feel. Almost 8 months later, you still have not learned the lesson that you were supposed to learn while we were together. So I don't miss you as a partner. I think I miss us just being able to be friends and just being able to go through life and make experiences. I don't necessarily think I would go back to that relationship unless he's a whole different person. I'm not seeing that at the moment. And I don't think I'm waiting for that either. I got to keep it moving. There are so many wonderful men out here who will accept me and my son. I mean, of course, it would be great to rekindle that family bond with my son's father and we recultivate the family that we had, but I don't think I'm holding my breath waiting for that.
And I wonder, had you stayed in that relationship, do you think that your mental health would be where it is right now?
I probably would have had a mental break because I was just so exhausted physically. I think I was definitely enabling him in a lot of ways to just do and be whatever he wanted to be, and him not ever be in a mindset of, I am in a marriage. I walk to the altar with this person and that requires a shift in everything. And I just don't think that was there. So that was pushing me to the edge. Each day I woke up and I'm literally like, oh, today is the day I'm going to lose my mind. And I need to go pray or I need to go on a drive. And I just didn't want it to consistently be like, I have to get out of my house to find peace. I feel like it should be the opposite. When the world is crazy, you should want to come home. And when it became to the point where my home was just such a space of triggering for me, I was like, oh no.
And aside from your ex-husband and his family, do you find that there are people in your life who have treated you different since your divorce?
I definitely fell out with a few family members who were definitely like, y'all could have worked it out. And no, just because y'all chose to work it out through infidelity and this, and this, I don't want to have a laundry list of things that I chose to work it out for. And that gives me some badge of honor as a wife. I think the measure of a husband is somebody who treats his wife the way that he would want himself to be treated. And then the measure of a wife is somebody who supports a husband who treats her well. So I just don't think that dynamic was there at all. I'm trying to explain to them, like, y'all wanted us to be at all the family functions, not talking to each other, having an attitude, but we're there. We got the rings on our finger, but it's not a joyous occasion for anyone. Absolutely not.
And I think another thing that is probably in their minds is they want the best for you. So in their head, all they know is what they know. In their head, they're like, well, yeah, I dealt with everything I dealt with, but I ain't gonna die alone. And they don't want that for you. They don't want you to be single for forever. So I think a lot of the times people want you to stay comfortable. As long as you have a husband, you have a husband, and that makes you a legitimate woman. Not my own belief, but this is what people think. You're a legitimate woman who can keep a man. But the moment you divorce, now you got to start that whole becoming a legitimate woman all over again.
And I also just think it's that we view singleness as the plague. I don't understand. Y'all would have thought I had some type of illness. There is nothing wrong with me. When I come around, your relationships will not fail. Singleness is not contagious. Everybody will be fine. And I think that there are so many people that are comfortable with settling and not pursuing the actual life that they wanted out of fear. I feel like a lot of time it's out of fear, or sometimes it's just you don't want to do the work to create the other life that you could have. That has never been me. I'm always going to do what I think is best for me, what suits me at the time. If I want a ponytail, I'm going to have a ponytail. If I want green hair, I'm going to have green hair. If I want a tattoo on my face, it's on my face. And I think that sometimes when people are around people like that, it makes them uncomfortable because that's the life that they've always wanted, but they just cannot attain it. Sometimes, to be honest, it's like, how dare you be happy? It's like, how dare you prioritize yourself? How dare you choose to raise your son in a healthy environment? How dare you decide to break generational curses? And it's crazy that it's like that, but it's like, if you say you care about me, why would you want me to be in something that does not prioritize me? My mom has been going through her healing journey as well. And her and my dad got divorced when I was 4. I'm 26. She has decided to finally get back out there and date. My mom has so much advice about peace in my home and rest. She's a grown woman. She's a grandma. She has grandkids now. Had she known what she knows now about healing and not settling, she would have given us different advice growing up as young women about relationship. Now my mom is like, oh, okay, you don't like that? He's not the one for you. Or really sit back and assess what he brings to the table, knowing what you bring to the table. And she's from that generation that where she saw her parents. We known each other since we were 16. We have 7 kids. And even though things are not the best, I'm going to say that's the generation that her parents grew up in. And so the only advice they could give her is the things that they knew. And she's choosing at this time to just be like, no. All of her friends are getting married or have just gotten married in their 50s and 60s. And they're happy living their life. And my mom is like, it's okay to start over no matter what age you are. You don't have to settle just because you feel like you're in a different stage of your life. You're a mom, or maybe you're living somewhere else, or you're an older woman. You have the opportunity to kind of start over and really live the life that you want to live. And I just don't think people think that they have that opportunity. You can be 100 and start over. It's older people going back to college, really chasing the life that they always wanted. And I just wish that we as a society, and more specifically us just as Black people, were more okay with being like, this is not for me. I've been working this job for 30 years and it's not for me anymore. And I can quit and I can go start over and do something that I love, or I can start that business that I always wanted to start since I was 12, even though I'm 70 now. Or I can leave this man. I can get a divorce when I'm 40 and move on and fall in love and have the next 40 years with somebody who honors and values me. And I just don't feel like that's something that we culturally do. I think we have been told so much as Black people to just, you got to get it how you can, take what you can get. I don't think other cultures are taught that. I have not seen that with other races and ethnicities. It's just Black people are so used to just taking stuff.
Yeah, but I think that stems from childhood too. If you think about different cultures, their children are allowed to express themselves. I remember if I would say anything that my parents didn't like, I was in trouble, period. What does that turn into when you are an adult? You are so used to not speaking your mind, so you have communication issues. Then you have this idea of, okay, well, I need to do this on my own, or I don't want to share this with people. It's just a lot of issues that come from not having that ability to speak your mind as a child. I think that as a kid, this is obviously my inexperienced opinion, you don't want to give children too much freedom in their words. But you also don't want to stop them from expressing themselves, but more so educating them on how to express themselves in a way that is friendly to the environment. And so I think in the Black community, because as children, we aren't allowed to say what we want to say. We grow up as adults that don't know how to say what we want to say. So what do? We just act, and half the time the actions don't make sense, but we didn't get to play out our emotions in our head. So now we have this buildup of anger and desire that we never exerted as children.
The comment I get is, you're so carefree. You're so transparent about your life. Baby, I don't live in the shadows. I've lived that life where everything I'm going through is a secret and I'm battling life on my own. Absolutely not. No, thank you. No for 1,000. I'm good. And I feel like when I'm asking men what's really going on, I think you should get a counselor. I think you should talk to somebody about that. You should go tell your mom how you felt as a child. They're like, what? And I'm like, honey, you're carrying a Louis Vuitton case on your back of luggage, and I need you to let that go. I need you to drop it off at the door. And I think people are carrying so much trauma. It's just like generational. It's like my mom never talked to her mom, so she never talked to me, and I'm not gonna talk to my kids. And it's like, at what point in time is somebody gonna say that's not right? What we did as a family didn't work. I talked to so many of my female friends, and they're like, my mom keeps asking me when she's getting grandkids, and she's never getting grandkids because I don't want to be a mom. And I'm like, okay, have you had that conversation with her? Motherhood is not for everybody. It hit me like a wrecking ball. Okay, I was like, bloop, pregnant. I was like, okay, this is cute. But he may be the only one. And I'm okay with saying that. I don't need to have multiple children to feel like I'm a mom. There are some women who they love that. However, for me, it's like, my son could be the only one. I'll find a man who maybe has a child and we can just be a blended family. And then when our kids leave, we're going to be in Greece. We're going to be out of here living our best lives in another country. I don't need to check all the boxes that people feel like I need to check. And I think that's a lot of what we're doing in relationships. Your mom thinks that you need to marry a doctor to feel satisfied. You can go marry somebody that's an artist if that's what makes you feel good. You could marry somebody that plays video games on YouTube.
You can go marry somebody who not doing shit if he make you feel good.
If that makes you feel good and he's bringing in the coins, honey, who are you trying to impress? And for what reason?
Or if he's not bringing in the coins, but that man makes you happy.
If he wants to be a stay-at-home dad, if he wants to renovate your home while you're at work and you come home and now you got a jacuzzi in the house. What's the problem, sis? It's too much. Oh, my mama told me this, my great grand. And sweetie, I hate to be the person to say it, but when the lights turn off in the middle of the night, you're laying next to him. You're not laying next to your mom or your grandma or your friend or your pastor. You're laying next to the person, and you have to wake up and be in a consistent space with this man. And I don't think people understand that. And for me as a mom, it's like I have to trust this man. If I need to go to the grocery store and I'm going to leave my son at home, I have to trust that he's at home being gentle with my child, that he's on the same page with me when it comes to how we want to parent. I don't want to come home and my child traumatized from one grocery store trip. And so I have to do what's best for me. I can't be worried about what other people feel about who works and who doesn't work for me, because that's the person that I'm choosing to be with. And I think a lot of the times we settle because we want to have that picture perfect image of what other people think we should have. Oh, I'm a doctor and I need to marry a doctor. Like, actually, you're boring and I don't enjoy your company and you don't stimulate me in any way, but you have all the qualifications that people say I should be looking for, but you're not the one for me.
I guess we can leave off on your feelings about the amount of effort and time that goes into dating. And while you are in your transformation, your healing, I know you're still healing, will you be intentional in the dating realm, or what are your focuses right now?
Because I have so much on my plate, time is not a thing. I think that my co-parenting situation is becoming a lot more fluid. His dad works a lot, so he's able to take him a lot more. There will be some weekends where I prioritize self-care, and then there are some weekends where I'm actually dating. I think dating for me is always going to be intentional. I feel a lot more safe and happy with myself when I'm intentional with everything. I don't think I'm looking for a husband. If he falls on my doorstep, thank you, Jesus. I put in all this effort the last time. I've learned my lesson. Just give it to me. But I think that for me, it's more so dating to kind of really have experiences. I don't know. I read a lot of books, and I was reading this book and it was just like, sometimes people are experiences. They're supposed to make you either feel things that are like, yes, I want this plus more, or to be like, now I can articulate that that's something that I don't want. That's something that I'm not looking for. And so I think that's what dating has been for me. I'm very intentional with the time. If you ask me to go out on a date, I'm going to block out that time so I can really get to know you. I don't need people on my phone every day talking about good morning, beautiful. It's like, what's next? But I think I am a lot more intentional with saying, I don't know what I'm looking for now. When I find it, if I find it in you, I'm going to communicate that with you so we can determine like, okay, So are we going to be exclusively dating? Are we building toward a relationship? Are you trying to be my man? Like, what? You trying to be my husband? You trying to be a stepdaddy? Like, what is it? I always tell people, like, I'm just dating to see what you have to offer, see if I'm even a person for you, because I've learned that I'm just not for some people. If I'm not for you, this is a cool dinner, this is a cool vibe, the food was great, but it was nice to know you, and we're just not for each other. I'm dating to see what you offer. You can date to see what I offer, and maybe in like 3 months, if you're like, okay, this is a vibe, I'm consistently around, you're consistently around, then we kind of go from there. I'm trying not to be pessimistic and be nitpicky. Like, oh, he breathes too loud. Up, delete. Block. But I definitely think that being intentional with dating is how I'm more intentional with myself. Because it's like, I love myself. I finally can say, I love myself. I love everything I have to offer. I'm not skimping on the qualities. I know that I'm just all that. Okay. After years of being like, am I enough? Will anybody ever love me? Somebody gonna love me because I know what I have. I know what I bring to the table. And if you're not intentional with me, then how can I be intentional with myself? If you're burning me out, I'm gonna burn myself out. I'm not gonna have time for self-care. I'm not gonna have time for reflection. So if you're not adding to me, then unfortunately, we're not going to be able to date, baby. And it's no hard feelings, but there's somebody out there for you. It's just not me.
Yeah, so our great sis Jasmine brought up some great points about the impact that other people's opinions can have on our beliefs of when we need to be married. I wanted to continue that conversation. So our next guest talks with us more about it. She too is in education and recently completed her doctorate. I started off our conversation wondering, how do others' opinion impact our own beliefs about pursuing higher education over pursuing romantic relationships?
On one hand, people want to be this quote unquote feminist. I tell my friends all the time, I'm not a pink hat girl, right? That's a whole nother story. But I'm a feminist in the sense that we do need equal pay. You do need a room for women to breastfeed. You do need time frame when we're on our period, all these different kinds of things. But then if moms are telling girls to be educated and dads are on board with girls being educated and we want them educated, but we're still in 2020 and it's like, mom wanted me to have the accolades. Dad wanted me. Grandma said I couldn't do it. I had 8th grade education. I raised kids. I want you to do it. But then but baby, when you going to get married? You don't have a Valentine? Valentine's not even a real holiday. How can you don't sit up here and be Christian on one end, but then I don't have no Valentine? Which one is it? And then are you tired of taking girls' trips? Well, I don't take girls' trips all the time. I do take trips with men, but it's not a priority to take a girls' trip. Just like it's not a priority to make sure I take a co-ed trip with another man every year. And I think that we're starting to debunk it by talking about it out loud to make sure that this next generation of educated girls can slap down that notion. I'll be honest, I have friends who are educated, who are married, and they're going through hell, but they're posting pictures like they're not. And so I'd rather be peaceful with self. And don't get it twisted. Men are looked at it the same way. How can you still be a player at 40 and 50? What were you doing in your teens and 20s and 30s? You didn't read any book or talk to any OG about how to talk to a girl? Like, are we still playing? Yeah, so that's just my notion. Because if we're going to be honest, how can you get all this education? You're younger than me and you already have your Ph.D. I'm in my mid-30s and I just got my doctorate and cook dinner every day and go grocery shopping and clean a house and plan a trip. You can't do it. You can't do it. You're going to break down. You're going to burn out, just like people did in grad school. Everything can't be on one plate. I've had older friends of mine who finished their doctorate in their mid-40s and 50s, and they said they got married after, or they went into it married and they went out of it divorced. And so I think it's just the notion of just like when we talk about different mental illnesses, in terms of relationship, nobody is better than the next person because you're single or married or divorced or on your second marriage or on your second divorce. It just means you haven't found the right person. And I think what we need to start saying to our friends is, I want you to find the right person instead of telling people, hurry up, or what is the problem with you?
While you were working on your doctoral degree, were you dating?
So that's a whole nother story. And it's the story of I was in a relationship with somebody I was comfortable with that I knew it wasn't going nowhere. Because I was so busy, I stayed. And I stayed. It was emotionally abusive, but we had fun. I had been with this man since 2013. We had a lot of fun and he had a really great job and I would go on his business trips. but he was emotionally abusive. And when I had to seek counseling for it, one thing the counselor told me was men are also jealous of women's accolades. And I could not conceive of that at first. But sometimes when you go back and you look at some of these athletes, everyone doesn't marry or partner with somebody that's the exact same as them. And I'm never comparing my relationship to anybody else. But according to my counselor, men do get jealous of your accolades sometimes. You have to think of yourself as a woman. Do you want to date in your category range? Do you want to date below, or do you want to date above? Because in each category range, you're not going to show up as your whole self all the way. There's something you're going to have to give and take. And so that is one thing I know I'm working with my counselor on, is how do you give and take? Because sometimes the man who is in the rank underneath you doesn't mind hearing about all your accolades, because he's excited to bring this woman home around his friends that has all these accolades. But the thing is, in turn, you may not be talking about accolades to your friends and your family, but his accolades are different in the sense that they may not be academic. They could be that he's blue collar and he builds. But yeah, back to when I was in graduate school. And actually, to be honest with you, that just ended in February of this year. It was on and off for about a year, but it just officially ended in February. And it's hard because it takes energy to go out and meet new people, to go through that. How are you? How are you? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite color? What do you like to eat? What are you doing right now after work? That takes a lot of energy when you could just stay with the same person and just figure out why it's not working and what we can do to make it work, because you feel like, well, when I go to the next relationship, then I know better. But what you're not realizing as a woman is you're putting a lot of emotional energy into this man. And just like physical energy, emotional energy takes a toll out of you.
What within you changed where you were able to walk away from a relationship that you were in for, what was that, 7 years?
Yeah. One thing is, when people start, you have to watch the slick shit, as they say, out of people's mouths. If people are not saying things to you with intentions of good, you have to start questioning, why are you still there? Because we know the notion of, we can't control what other people say, but we can control what we say, and we can control what we react. And so as I got closer to graduation, it was, well, what are you going to do with this degree? Well, you put in all this work. You're still going to be teaching? It was always a negation of, why did you even get it if you have no plan? Okay, well, so help me with the plan. Because I didn't know how to talk up to him, because this was a new him. So I didn't know how to talk up to him. And so I practiced that with my counselor. And so when I was able to reply with some of the tools that she gave me, okay, well, help me with that. You're right. I'm probably still going to be teaching. What do you think I should do next? He never had no answer or a plan. And so that's when she helped me realize those comments he was making were not for any good intention. It was to break me down. And so I let that slide for probably from March 1 of 2019, when I defended my proposal, until Valentine's Day 2020. And so I can never knock any woman for going back into any emotional or physical abusive relationship, because you're tied to that person a lot of times.
Aside from that, were you satisfied all other times except those times of emotional abuse?
So yes, sexually I was satisfied. My love languages are time, and I love gifts. So both of those he gave me. I think I was doing some reading one time, and it said that a lot of educated women love to date men who will give them their time and their experiences. And I realized that that was me. And so I had all of that. I had access to his life.
During that relationship, when you were in transition out of it, did you feel you had left the relationship before it ended? Did you know it was about to end when it ended?
Yes. I think we were both leaving it. I think we were only there sexually. So I definitely knew that it was ending before we officially ended. I think, honestly, as you get older, nobody wants to be the bad person and say this has ended.
Did it scare you once you became single that maybe there would be no one out there for you? Was that ever something that crossed your mind?
Yeah, so you ask a good question. It did not cross my mind until he said it one time. And so when he started saying that, it started getting ingrained in my head. You're not going to find anybody better than me, right? You know that. I love you, right? I'm the only one who will love you the way you want to be loved. It was those comments. And it's just really interesting how men know how to say this shit to you, to get into your head.
And how long did it take you to not believe that, or are you still struggling with that belief?
No, I'm no longer struggling with that belief. Number one. Number two, it took me as long as when I started talking with the counselor about that, and she started teaching me the replies to make. Like I said before, when he would make a statement about, well, what am I going to do next? Because if you're partnered with somebody, you're in a relationship with somebody, you can help me decide what am I going to do next. we can work on this together. You do that in friendship, so you should definitely be able to do that in a relationship. But when it gets to the point in a friendship or relationship where nobody has any answers to be able to help you, and it's not like you're asking for overwhelming help, then that's where you have to sit back and decide, is this what I want anymore?
Did you think it would be hard to find someone else?
Of course, it's always in the back of my mind. I'm not going to say other women, but in the back of my mind, you think it would be hard because you don't even know where to, I know where we met, but I'm not an active pursuer. If you come and talk to me, we can talk. And so I didn't even know where you start with that. I'm not a social media person. I probably just really started on social media a year ago. I've never been a Black Planet or MySpace person. So I'm not doing any apps. Do I have time to go out? Okay, well, I was a hit or miss when I started going to a few events here and there with friends, and I would meet people. Then that voice creeps up where it's like, you're not going to find anybody better than me. You're not going to get these experiences. You're not going to get these gifts. And you're like, oh, wow, is he right? Let me call him. Let me see what he's doing.
Are you finding yourself still kind of in that trap today?
I would say no, because I have definitely realized that there are more people out there. And just like me, there are people who could have been in relationships, weren't married, they didn't work out. They could have been in marriages that did not work out. So everybody is starting new when you're out there. And everybody does have a story behind them. One thing my counselors helped me realize is writing down, what do you want this time around? And the signs of what I don't want, being able to pick up on those clearly. I don't have aspirations of having a podcast or being a professor, but write down your aspirations. Talk to that person about what your aspirations are, and you talk to them about, are they willing to help support you? Because if you can't be open about the support in that situation, if you can't be open, I want to farm one day, a CBD farm, I want to have a garden. Are you willing to support me? If these people don't know your dreams and aren't willing to support you, you don't need them around. So you have to first, that's what people always talk about, self-care, get to know you first, but you get into a new relationship. It's cliche, but it's very true. So realize what your goals are first, being able to actualize them, tell a friend about them, say them in the mirror, and then you're able to tell the new person that you're dating what you want.
Do you find that you have any emotions about feeling too old to raise children, or are you interested in having children? And is it like I needed that partner, or that was my chance to have the children that I want to have?
I think that goes back to, do we want to be in 2020 or do we still want to be in 1960? Yes, women do have this threshold that you should, but I think that if you've been working all these years and you have children later on in life, after 35, after 40, you also should be able to have the ability to take off up to a year or two with that new child. Whereas if you had that child at 23, 24, you didn't have that ability, but you might have had more energy. But I also know that I have a built-in support system already. I have people who I've worked with who have retired who told me that they would come and be a live-in nanny, or they would come and be a nanny. So those are no issues of mine. Now, there could be an issue of somebody else, and that's perfectly fine. Yes, you do want to find someone who is willing. And so that's where it comes into knowing what you want and not being able to play that game or waste your time when you go on these dates or build these relationships.
Is dating a priority for you right now?
I don't know what's a priority right now in the pandemic, but I know that I am dating, and I don't have a problem with securing time to date while in a pandemic. To be honest with you, am also relaxing and chilling out still, because I just think that this only comes around every 100 years. But I would consider it a top 3.
And do you mind sharing what the top 2 are?
One thing my counselor likes is for me to be able to actualize my feelings and not say, I feel, or I think that people feel, what do you feel? And I know that I went through mental burnout in graduate school. And so my number one priority is getting back to being able to swim. I was sinking. I wasn't floating, I was sinking. And I just have been able to get to the point of floating, and I want to be able to swim now. And so that's definitely number 1. And number 2 is getting back in shape, man. Grad school, I was in the study, I was in the library all night long, getting Uber Eats delivered, a pizza here, and a vending machine here, and bringing a box of fruit snacks here, and the weight just crept on and crept on. So that's number 1 and number 2.
Do you ever feel that there is something wrong with you because you're single?
You know what? I'm going to answer this question like people wouldn't think a woman is going to answer. Yes, of course. And it's of course because if there's a goal, if there's something about you that has stayed consistently the same and it hasn't changed, you do have to check yourself. You have to check yourself eventually. If my underarms are always musty, it's not everybody else. It's me after a while. And so actually one of my friends had to make me realize that one time. You have a problem with every man you date. You're the common denominator. I need you to figure out why. So yes, and it's because I didn't know what I wanted. I still don't. I'm working on it. And that's perfectly fine. We have people who have friends who have 2 and 3 kids and are married and they still don't know what they want in a career. That's fine. And they still have never traveled out the country. And that's fine. Everybody has not done something that the next person has mastered, and that's fine. And so, yes, because I feel like if I'm able to master this degree and pass this, the parents love me here, my students love me. Why am I not able to figure out what is going on here? I'll just lay out a few things I know has been revealed by my counselor. While I like a man's time, I honestly don't know how to give my time. And if you've ever seen that quote where they say, and it's like, you got to take these social media relational quotes with a grain of salt sometimes. And I can name some people that I'm like, y'all need to stop listening to their advice. But anyway, one of them is anything I require, I can reciprocate. I sent that to tons of friends one day and I was like, this is me right here. I can't reciprocate it. And I have to work on that. And that's perfectly fine. While I love getting gifts, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not about to give no man all this money and these gifts. Like, I'm not doing that for you. I'll cook dinner. I'll go get the groceries. But that is a story to be continued. I'm still working on that. And actually telling them what my goals were. I'm not a person who likes to share my goals because I've been through female friendships before. I've shared the goals and then those goals were taken away from me. I.e. the goals were told to other people by them or they took my goals and made them their goals. And so now I'm very guarded about sharing my goals because I feel like if I share my goals, if you don't have no concrete plan within 24 hours, I'm done.
Do you ever feel like sometimes that had you not pursued a doctorate that you could have had a successful relationship at this point?
Yes, but what does that mean? That I've been able to say that I've been in a relationship for 5 years, I've been married for 3? If people are going to say age is nothing but a number, this doesn't matter, why are we so concerned about, I've been married 10 years. Yeah, but you've been in 8 years of hell. I've been married 25 years. Yeah, but you've been broke for 20. I mean, what does that mean? If I'm 36 now and I get married at 45, a lot of my friends may be having 10 and 15-year anniversaries. I'll be having a 5. So what does that matter? It means nothing.
And then even there's going to be a select few who will be divorced.
This is what I'm saying. So what does that matter? And so, yes, to answer that original question, yes, I do think because I would have had the time and I wouldn't have stayed in this 7-year relationship. So we're going to call it what it is so I can be done with it. But guess what? God allowed a different path. And that's why when you asked earlier, is there me? Yes, God had to help me realize that there were things I had to work on. Why do you want to stay with somebody who wants to treat you like that and talk to them? Because why? You want to help build them up? You're not here to build nobody up.
Was there comfort in that to the point where it's like, well, let me stay because
I already know what I'm getting. I know what we're going to do every year for Valentine's Day. I know what we're going to do for his birthday, my birthday. I know what kind of gifts I can get out of him. I know where we're going to fly for his job. I know what I'm getting.
You mentioned that you were dating during this pandemic. What does that look like for you?
So what it looks like is being careful yet reckless.
What does that mean?
So I've gotten COVID tests. People will tell you that they've gotten a test. People will sometimes ask for your results. Some people won't. I have had friends who have had outside parties. You know, they have fire pits. They have husbands or boyfriends, and those friends have come over. And so I've met 2 guys actually through those situations. And then also, you know, I'll be honest, I have a few friends from the past who are now divorced men. So they were lonely because, again, we all want to be partnered in life, right? That's biology. And we've been on a few dates, and I would call them like friendship dates in a sense. I can imagine being divorced and you don't know how to date, just like when you've been with somebody 7 years, you know, where do I go to date? How does this work? One thing my counselor told me, and I definitely tell a lot of my friends, it's one thing to be single and get to know you, but don't just stop dating all the way. That's my advice. That's why I tell people, you don't have to take it. I don't have to hear your response to it, but don't just stop dating. Just like don't stop being friends with people. You have to continue to have conversations with people of the opposite sex. Or if you're, you know, same sex, you have to continue to date, to have the conversation, to be comfortable with going out on dates, right? Because it's just like the gym. You don't want to just stop because your foot is hurt At least go to the gym and swim. Go to the gym and lift some upper body weights. Do something. I think that just going out is the something. You get to dress up. You get to take a shower and put some clothes on, right? You get to put some makeup on. You get to talk about the daily events, talk about what somebody likes in a very carefree manner.
What do you think is the most difficult part about being a single professional?
Oh, is your business going to be put in the street? And am I dating someone who has something to lose, right? Because if they have nothing to lose, are they going to show up at your house? Are they going to show up at your job? Are they going to release screenshots of pictures and conversations we've had?
Are there times that you can recall where people made assumptions about you because of your singleness?
Yeah, actually, that's a very interesting question. I'm going to tell you this. One of my really good friends who I was at her house once or twice a week during quarantine, one thing she would just always tell me privately or in my friends is, I just knew you'd be the friend that's married. I just knew you'd be the friend. Out of all of us, we need you to get married so we can be in a wedding. And I sit back and think about that because I talked to her privately one time and I was like, what is it that you see in me that you think that I would be married before you all? I'm more of the introvert. They're more of the extrovert. They're more of the runners, and they're going to post pictures of them running, and they're in running groups where I'm like, I post nothing. It takes me a while to warm up, but they've known me a while. And so that's the hard part when somebody thinks you're supposed to be somewhere that you're not, right? So it's like graduating with your doctorate. Somebody thinks that you're supposed to be at your highest level when you're like, no, man, I'm depressed. I've been through some mentally draining stuff.
And have you felt excluded?
Yeah, you're always going to feel excluded because if it's a couples event and you're not coupled, you can't go. But the same thing they're talking about at a couples event, same thing they're going to be talking about at the house at the cookout or at a singles event. So at the end of the day, once you get coupled, you can go to a couples event later on. But the couple person also feels excluded when you do single stuff.
What has healing looked like for you? Are you still healing? Do you feel that you're nearing being done with healing? Just what does that process look like for you?
That's an interesting question because my counselor actually she asked me the same exact question last week on our session. And one thing I told her was having the conversations with myself in the mirror, because I just think at every step in life, in terms of how educated you are or the chapters of your life, the conversations are going to look different with the men you date, right? The conversation was different when you were 22 versus 32 versus 42 versus 52. And so the healing has been realizing that the conversation is not going to be the same, which I had to mentally accept. And then what does the new conversation look like? And this notion of I got everything in my package, when these women talk about it, no, you don't get everything in your package because a man doesn't get everything in his package. You don't get everything when you go to a restaurant. You're not going to get everything. But what are you willing to compromise? And she gave me deadlines on when I needed to accept that it was over. She gave me deadlines on when I needed to accept that when I asked him something and I didn't get the response that I wanted, that was the response he was giving me. That's all he could offer, and you need to take it or leave it. So she gave me deadlines. And to be honest with you, my deadline of December 30th, she's like, I'm not even giving you New Year's Eve. December 30th is to no longer talk about him. When somebody brings up the ex or him, it's, I was in a relationship, it's over. And not explain until I'm in a relationship with someone and we're in it, and then explain why it didn't end. You don't have to explain why these relationships ended on date number 1 and 2. They don't deserve that. You don't have to get that information from me. Just know that I'm here now.
I wasn't in a 7-year relationship. I was in a 4-year relationship, and actually we had broken up last year, and the healing process really didn't start until November the 4th. So I was just kind of holding on, and kind of similar to what your counselor said to you was like, give yourself deadlines. I gave myself deadlines, and it ended up being actually February. So the Valentine's Day weekend of 2020. And I just since then have been on this healing journey. My ability to talk to others about relationship and singleness has been honestly interesting because I couldn't talk about that literally earlier this year, talking about and having strength enough to be good as a individual person and not seeing myself as a couple. It was hard for me because it's like, oh, we're going to figure it out. We're going to make something work. But when I realized that a man who wants to be kept will be kept and you have to be able to walk away from it because you know who you're dating, right? And you know what they are capable of. When you spend years with someone and every time they want something, they go get it. Every time they see something they like, they go buy it. And you're sitting here waiting like, oh, are they gonna love me again? It's like, baby girl, you spent 4 years with a go-getter and now all of a sudden, if he, let me just make sure he don't want me before I move. No, baby girl, like, every time he wanted something, he went out and get it. So why do you think that if he didn't want you, he wouldn't come and get you, sweetheart? You gotta move on. You gotta move strong. So that's why February was a very transformative time for me. And I think my healing was very intense and extreme. So unlike some people, I was able to take work off. I took off a few months from work to get over my heartbreak. And it's a blessing to be able to say that I was able to work that out with my job, but I needed that because I wasn't working. It was a very intensive healing for me.
Yeah, and can I also add to that, Dr. E? You said some good things. Number one, I want to add to that, the healing process looks different for everybody, right? Taking time off work. Let me add that by saying I did take some time off. I don't know if it was months in a row, but I did take some time off, definitely. Anytime I had a counseling session set up, I took that whole day off. That was a non-negotiable. And sometime when it got to the deadlines of what she needed, I would take 2 days off. She could write me a note. Sometime I would set it up where the meeting was on Thursday, and I'd be off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come back on Monday, because I needed that. Also, I will add to that as well, one thing my counselor also helped me realize, different people are able to bounce back from heartbreak in different ways due to different reasons. She said one reason is because you might have started dating at a younger age, whether it be high school, college, and had numerous relationships. And so the time dedicated to getting over heartbreak, you did that work in your 20s. Whereas you could have just been dating here and there and not been in serious relationships. It could have been I had a boyfriend 2 years, 3 years, and you weren't getting over heartbreak. It was just a little tenderoni. So then fast forward to you're in your late 20s, 30s, and you're in real relationships. And now you're having to take off work. You had to take off college then, but you had to take off work. And you're not able to bounce back because you didn't do that bounce back at your earlier ages. And so she said, again, that's also fine. And one thing I like about her is what she says is everything is fine. It's fine if it takes you that long to get over a heartbreak now, just like it was fine. Nobody questioned you when you were in your late 20s. And so we have to get over this notion that there's a timeline to everything and everything stops. Life stops. Life can't reoccur. Yes, it can reoccur. That's okay, right? Because now you've been through that, which means the next one may not take as much time because now you have the tools.
Do you feel that you had a emotional support system outside of your therapist for the full duration of your healing?
So what's interesting is I met this guy at a Super Bowl party through my friend and her husband's his best friend. And so I had her. Of all people, sometimes when you meet women through your friends, men, you don't have them because it's pillow talk, right? At the end of the day, we know our friends are going to have pillow talk. They're going to run their mouth. I had her, and I had her through the entire thing. And I would say with other friends, it was probably a no. And I think one thing we have to realize is we cannot burden our friends emotionally. It's not fair, right? I'm going to be the first to say that. I'm going to start talking about that more. We cannot burden our friends emotionally. This notion of, well, they're your friend, you should tell them, yeah, but if they don't have the tools to give you what you need in order to move forward, stop going to people that don't have those tools. That's fine if they don't. They're still your friend. Go to someone who has the tools. And we got to learn that in life. When your knee hurts, you don't keep telling your friend your knee hurts. You tell them 1 or 2 times, and they say, go find a doctor. You say, okay, that's fine. But we go tell our friends about these man problems, and we're thinking that they can solve it. That's not fair to them. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to you. And so I would say beyond that one friend and me realizing after talking to friends about it, they couldn't help. That's when I realized I had to go seek counseling.
At what point of your process did you seek counseling? Was it when you were still in the relationship?
It was after my dissertation, after March 1st last year.
Got it. During grad school, did you ever feel that, quite honestly, you needed therapy?
Not till the end. It was a looming. I didn't know what was going on with me.
Is there anything else that you like to share?
Yes. Let me share that life does not end because you are single in your 20s, single in your 30s, single in your 40s. Life does not end because you've had 2 relationships that didn't work out. You had an engagement that didn't work out. You have been divorced and it didn't work out. Life doesn't end. Sometimes you needed that relationship to realize what you truly needed. We don't look at things like that. I applied to 2 or 3 grad schools before I got into one that I graduated from. I didn't realize that it just wasn't my time. And I think if we become okay with that, we learn that it just wasn't our time. And one thing my counselor taught me is Sometimes the notion of what people say to us, we can either not respond or we can just let them know that's because that was your time. I don't know what my time is. Because this notion of when are you getting married? When are you doing this? We can only control what we say, but people are going to have to also start learning to stop asking people that. Women especially. Because if you're going to talk to us, like I said before, about education and about grad school and about this, and you teach us how to, who's really teaching you how to be in a relationship, how to get in a relationship, and how to get out of one that's not good for you?
I'm really marinating on a situation that happened to me where it's just like, so what's wrong with you? Why are you single? And I'm just like, well, I'm the shit. I ain't gonna lie to you. I can't sit here and lie. I don't feel great about myself. The reason why I can say it so freely is because throughout graduate school, so I spent 4.5 years working on a Ph.D. and that whole time I thought I wasn't shit. I really was like, you are dumb. And the stuff I would really say to myself, you don't know nothing. You can't keep up. What is wrong with you? Look, she know the answer. Why the hell didn't you know the answer? What is going on with you? All of these things, you start questioning who you are and your strength. And it's like my PhD broke me down so much, and I never told anyone. I struggled by myself. I struggled, and that emotional hurt that I had was something that I only wanted for me. That's something I didn't need to share because it was my PhD journey. So I spent my whole life up until being a PhD student, being very confident in myself and very self-aware and know what I want to pursue. But then it's something about working on my doctorate that made me question everything about myself, everything about the people around me. When I say I questioned everything about my existence, and I was in a relationship at the time. So one of the things that I personally feel that I learned was if you're not going into a PhD married, and this is my opinion, you might want to put that relationship on ice, because the person that you are going to emerge as when you are on the other end of this PhD may not look the same as the person that you were when you came in, because the process just evolves you, and everyone can't evolve at the same pace as you. So I know I was dating, and one of the challenges was like I would send books, I would send podcasts, and I'd be like, hey, could you listen to this audiobook so we can talk about it? I just, it was stuff about how to build wealth and things like we can use in order to start evolving as people. And I just remember, oh, I don't have time and I can't do this. And I'm like, what the fuck you think I'm over here doing? I quote unquote didn't have time to read this either or listen to this audiobook either. But on my ride to lab, I would turn it on and listen to it on my way to lab. And I think that the challenge is you fall in love before you determine whether this is actually a perfect fit for you.
What you just said right there is a whole nother topic within dating and singleness. That's a separate fireside chat. The emotional turmoil within you that you have to deal with psychologically in a grad school, and you're growing. And one thing I talked to my counselor about, I said, if I'm talking to a female friend or a man I'm dating, if it ain't about these books, if it's not about my dissertation, if it's not about where are we eating as soon as this is over, I can't talk about nothing else. If it's not about you gonna bring me my toothbrush and because I done forgot to brush my teeth every day headed to work because I'm just trying to make it to work, you gonna bring that to my job and lunch, there was nothing else to talk about. I had friends, and I'll tell anybody from the beginning, I dispatched articles to everyone, or I would read the articles and highlight and send pictures or copy and send those to people and say, I need you to type this for me. If you can't get this work, there's nothing we have to talk about right now. And that's the stage of life that I was in. And like you said, I can't talk to anybody about that because that's what I wanted to pursue at the time. And it's just like our friends who are having babies. That's okay for them to call us and want to talk about baby this and baby that. I'm your friend. I'm going to listen. But I know that I can't necessarily provide anything for you, but I am willing to listen. I'm willing to come over, provide emotional support. Let me bring groceries. You want me to watch the baby for you? Come over and talk. I'm willing to provide those things. Another thing we have to think about, my counselor helped me, talk to people about what you need. And if they're not able to provide that, then you know where you stand. Like I tell my friends with kids, I just learned how to change diapers. I didn't have to raise nobody growing up. I just learned how to change diapers when you all had them. I don't feel comfortable staying here all day long with a baby, but I will come over while you're here to watch baby while you can do stuff. I will come over while the baby is asleep to talk to you because I know you need an adult conversation. So I can provide that.
Yes. To providing our boundaries as single women within our friendships. So this is not the end of this conversation about singleness. This is just where we're gonna stick a pin in it, put it on pause, put it on ice for a second, let it marinate, because we got into some things today, okay? And we just need time to just, that was a lot to take in. Probably too much, because our great sis, these two queens, brought all the authenticity to us today and all the vulnerability. And I could not be more appreciative. We will be back next week with another episode. Until then, can you please be sure to review the show. Go ahead and really quickly leave a review. You can get in contact with me at The Research Her on the socials. I'm also at theresearchher.com. And until next time, I holla.